And we're live.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year. I'm delighted that we're all here today. First of all, let me thank our tremendous staff and our executive director for a lot of work over the last few weeks. And in the absence of our regular meeting, we have been meeting on a number of items, meeting with our General Assembly members. We had a meeting earlier this week, and I think we're scheduled for another one, a joint meeting tomorrow. Let me also thank the members of the MSCDE board, our superintendent. We have had a great deal of collaboration, partnership, and working with them on a number of items, and we'll update you on some of the progress that we've made. But that partnership, collaboration is ongoing, and I want to thank personally Chair Crawford and our Superintendent Wright and all of those engaged with us over the last few weeks. As you may note, at the end of last year and prior to the budget, even today, there's been ongoing speculation about potential changes to the blueprint for Maryland, the impact of the budget that the governor would submit, and a potential for major changes. Hopefully we'll have a discussion about that today. Our executive director go over the budget and some of the other implications of what that may mean for us going forward. But I would have to say, as of now, much of what we've heard, much of what has been discussed in the media has proven to be unfounded. As I said sometime before, until you put some things in legislation, until you make changes in the budget, we're going to proceed with the mandate that we have with the legislation and the blueprint as written, and that we will faithfully try to execute it as close to the original intent as possible. We will discuss, and you have before you, a number of changes that we have suggested. They're mostly technical, and I think there were some of the unintended consequences that have developed post the implementation of the legislation in its original form. We may have, and we will look at that as we go forward, legislation proposals from others, and we would have an opportunity to weigh in with that. But keep in mind what we started off with in terms of our perspective about that. That is that we believe that the blueprint is appropriate for what we are facing in this time in the state of Maryland, that we will try to faithfully deal with it in terms of its overall intent and motivation. We recognize that we're in a position now where we have to make major changes because where we stand today is unacceptable. So to the degree that changes are suggested, those who want to make those changes carry the burden of persuasion to demonstrate to us that we need to make those changes. And when we see that those changes are warranted, then we may weigh in, but we're not going to simply suggest changes unless those things are first demonstrated and the burden of proof is carried by those who want to make adjustments to the blueprint. With that, Ms. Executive Director, I think we need to check to see whether or not all of our members are here, and we'll call the roll and proceed accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Vice Chair Kerwin and members Manco, Stapleton, Robinson, Doss, and Lynch present, so all are present.
Okay. You had before you the last meeting summary, and if there are any changes or adjustments to that, we can entertain those at this point in time. Hearing or seeing none, I think the motion is in order now to adopt the meeting summary from our last meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and appropriately seconded. Are there any discussion meeting summaries? Okay, hearing or seeing none, ready now for the motion. All in favor of the adoption of the meeting summaries, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. Any opposition? Hearing none, the summaries are so adopted. We have the agenda before us, and hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to review the agenda for today. Similarly, are there any adjustment, changes, or addition to the agenda? This is an opportunity now to note that. Okay, then we will move now to adopt the draft agenda that you've had. The motion to that effect.
So
No.
moved. Moving
I'm
on.
not sure we need a motion.
But I want to adopt one just in terms of our process. I think we should do it even though it's not required, so that we make sure that that is approved for the record.
Okay.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the agenda for today. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's so adopted. Now we'll go to our public comments, and I'm not sure whether or not Shamora is here. So Gardner, if she's here, we will let her in and listen to her at this point in time, or any other people have indicated they're willing to speak today.
Good afternoon, Chair Leggett, Vice Chair Kerwin, and members of the Blueprint Accountability and Implementation Board. Happy New Year, and thank you for the opportunity to testify before this public meeting of the board. For the record, I am Shamaya Gardner, Executive Director of Strong Schools, Maryland. 2024 poses a wide variety of opportunities and challenges to our shared goal of seeing the Blueprint faithfully implemented, fully funded, and ultimately successful for every student in our state. In a little less than a month, we will enter the third year of the Blueprint Law's enactment, with the second iteration of implementation plans due not long after. And then this summer, some of your terms will end and new members will join the board. It is an exciting opportunity and a time for major change. And so as you all go about your work, we urge you to do the following. First, take with serious creative intention your legal obligation to educate and engage directly impacted stakeholders. The AIB staff is very clearly working miracles behind the scenes in their communication, collaboration, and engagement of systemic stakeholders like Blueprint implementation coordinators, superintendents, and state agency partners like MSDE and the consortium. However, that great work is happening in a world nearly entirely separate from the world of directly impacted stakeholders, your students, educators, families, and community institutions who will benefit from the success of the Blueprint. Unfortunately, the 2024 legislative session began with a storm of disinformation about the Blueprint and recycled complaints from county leaders across the state, much of which we believe could have been minimized or entirely averted if the AIB were engaging more consistently with those directly impacted and the broader Maryland public. Midday meetings like this are absolutely technically transparent, but not exactly in the spirit of the legislature's intent when they said engage and educate the public. Second, we encourage you all to constructively critique the communications plan submitted by the consultants before approving or implementing those recommendations. Our review, admittedly a brief one, found a lack of quantifiable metrics of success that will allow the board to track its progress and goal achievement in engaging and educating the public. And we definitely want you to be able to report out on your successes there in a reliable way. Third, we urge you all to maintain high standards for transparency in reporting in the second round of implementation plan submissions and approvals. The guidance provided to local education agencies for the 2024 plans does not explicitly require LEAs with flexible use of the concentration of poverty grant funds, those with 40 or more eligible schools, to share their consolidated funding plans for the use of those dollars. That's up to 50% of funds that could go unaccounted for. And so we urge you all to hold that line on accountability everywhere and everywhere that you can. We know you and your staff work incredibly hard, and we want to maximize the impact of that effort. So we do hope to see you with us in Annapolis on February 12th to celebrate Blueprint Day 2024. And if it works for you all, distribute your updated implementation plan. congratulations on your new staff, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Let me just follow up, and I agree with the points that you've made, and they've been well thought out and presented to us today. When you say stakeholders, precisely who you mean?
Honestly, talking about a lot of the students, those folks whose experiences are day to day in the classroom and a little bit more removed from the broader vision that we all know we're working towards. Sometimes you're in the trenches when you're in the school building, or, you know, if you're a student who's not aware of the opportunities coming through the implementation of all the provisions of Pillar 3, you might not be that excited. But we have found in our work conducting blueprint budget workshops and listening sessions that once folks know what the blueprint is, they're extremely excited and they're ready to get activated.
Right. And then the last point you mentioned, reference to the LEAs, in terms of the property grant. Could you repeat that last point again, please?
Yes, so the blueprint law allows for up to, I believe, 50% of concentration of poverty grant funds to be reserved at the central office level for the coordination of services that many schools, 40 or more, will require. We reviewed the guidance for the 2024 local implementation plans, and we don't see any questions explicitly asking those eligible counties to detail how they intend to use those funds, and we believe it's really important to have it on record.
But you didn't find anything amiss. You just indicated you were just not been transparent in terms of what we need to. So. Exactly that. And I think we are working on the metrics in all of the areas that we think are that need to be evaluated. And thanks for a reminder of that. And again, thank you and your entire organization for the tremendous work that you provided in getting the blueprint passed and working with us and holding us accountable as an organization to make sure that we implement that with fidelity. Any other questions or comments from the board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one. Ms. Gardner, your organization has quite a powerful communication network. And I've read lots of your materials and whatnot. So you mentioned that you had read our communication plan and felt that it needed more work. We would, since you have expertise in this area, you and your colleagues, if you could make some more detailed suggestions about how we could strengthen that plan, we would be most grateful.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we all share the fact that there hasn't been adequate communication, just generally speaking, about the blueprint, what it will mean for the state, and even some of the successes that we've had. And you know, it's certainly our hope that you and your organization can be a conduit for getting those messages out. And I think you have in the past, and we appreciate that, but we hope you'll continue in that vein. But we would really appreciate any thoughts you had about how to strengthen our communication efforts, because I think it is something that needs attention.
Absolutely. We're happy to contribute both in a written format, and if your staff has the time and capacity, we could also meet to talk about it. Thanks for the invitation.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? If not, thank you. I hope to see you on the 20th.
Oh, you will. You will.
Thank you. Okay. We're now moving to the executive director's report. So why don't we turn it over to Ms. Heiss to guide us through the report.
Thank you. The first item, I have to find the agenda. There we go. But the first item is a good segue to the comments that we just received. The first item is a staffing update, and I want to introduce several new staff, but I actually want to talk about our communications and outreach director position first as a good segue to Ms. Gardner's comments. So we did post for that position, and we've received a little over a dozen qualified applications. So we will be interviewing for that position later this month, and hopefully, depending on the outcome of those interviews, we'll be able to bring a communications and outreach director on board next month. And that will also give us more capacity to do more of the very important work around communications and educating, not just all of our work with the stakeholders that are directly engaged in implementing the blueprint, but parents, students, and sort of the general public. So that is that position. I'm really pleased to introduce our two new staff members, our education policy analysts, who started earlier this month. Deborah Ezebu and Libby Diamond, Elizabeth Diamond, but she goes by Libby, are both here with us today. And Deb is the policy lead for Pillar 2 around teachers and leaders and teacher preparation. And Libby is the policy lead for Pillar 3, and had both are former educators. And we'd like to really welcome them. We've already put them to work, and they're already contributing. So we're thrilled to have them. But Deb or Libby, if you wanted to just say a couple of words. Deb?
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. Hello, board members. Good to see you all. My name is Deborah Ezebu, and like Rachel said, I am the new education policy specialist for Pillar 2. It's so wonderful to be here with you all. Just a little bit of background on me. I actually taught for 5 years in Baltimore City. I'm also from the area. I grew up and graduated from PG County School, so it's really great to be here and be serving at the pleasure of the board, and also have a few years of experience working in policymaking at a federal and state level. So it's very exciting to be with you all, and I'm excited to get started. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you and welcome aboard.
Libby?
Hi, everyone. I'm Libby Diamond. I am just so honored to be here and be working with AIB and really supporting efforts to support children in Maryland. My background, I first started as a special ed teacher in Washington, D.C. for 5 years, pre-K 3 through 3rd grade. And then I transitioned into being an assistant principal and a literacy instructional coach. And in the last 5 years, I'd say my passion has been all around relearning how to teach reading to our youngest learners. And so I'm really excited to support Pillar 3 in all different domain areas, but specifically my passion really is around what we do to support students and making sure that every child has the right of reading.
Thank you and welcome aboard.
Very high priority, as you.
Thank you.
Great. So we do still have 5 positions to fill. So we're 2/3 of the way there. And we will be posting for the research and accountability director, and we'll also be posting for research data fiscal analyst positions in the spring, and then we potentially will also be reposting for the policy analyst position for Pillar 1 that we were not able to fill, and also we weren't able to fill the Pillar 3 specifically related to CTE and CCR pathways positions. So those are our remaining positions, and we're focused on posting and in some cases reposting those positions this spring, the winter and spring.
Could
So
you
try to fill all those positions before the end of the fiscal year. Yes, sir.
again, I missed everything you said about the communication.
Oh, sure. The communications. So the position was posted for about 3.5 weeks, and it closed last week. We received a number of applications, but only 15 of them were found to be qualified to meet the minimum qualifications. So we are going to be identifying folks to interview for the first round of interviews, and hopefully we will be able to fill that position from this recruitment
Okay.
next month.
Thank you.
Any other staffing questions, or we can move on to advisory committees? Okay. And I would ask Rachel Amstutz, our policy director, who is the lead support for the advisory committees. If you could just give us a brief update.
Sure. So since we last met, we've had a few meetings of our advisory committees. We've actually had 2 this week, with Pillar 2 and Pillar 3 both convening. And our meetings are just amazing. They're fabulous. And again, I just want to celebrate the leadership of all 4 of the advisory committees for intentionally seeking out guest speakers to come talk to the advisory committees, and then just open up the sharing of what's happening around the state. And in doing so, they're not afraid to say, tell us where you're struggling. Like, yes, we want to know what's working, but we also need to know what's a challenge right now. In particular, I'd like to feature our Pillar 2 advisory committee that met earlier this week. They were able to bring representatives in from across the state. So we started with Wacomico, we moved to Calvert, and we ended with Washington County. And it was a really great perspective to hear about, they focused on the diversity hiring reports that were submitted in December and are posted on our website. And in 2 of the cases, the HR director joined the Blueprint coordinator to share about efforts underway. And I think we took copious notes of what was going on. And I've also heard that many people were joining in and listening, and people are borrowing ideas from everybody else to say, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And what can we do or borrow from your efforts? And so the advisory committees were completely staffed. Everybody's joined them. All of our new members are on board, and we're actually seeing an uptick in the number of meetings because there's a lot to talk about. Most of them are moving to monthly instead of quarterly. So that's really what I wanted to share with you, just to feature some of the highlights. If there's any questions about them, I'd be happy to take those.
Vice Chair Kerwin?
Yes. Do we have a systematic way of hearing ideas, suggestions, recommendations coming from the advisory committees? I mean, they're having these discussions, they're interacting with a lot of people, and I may have missed it, but I don't recall ever getting in a sort of a consistent way feedback from the advisory committee. So do we have a process for that?
We are working on that process. So in the beginning, we didn't. We got them off the ground. We met with member Manco and shared some ideas about how to get the information that's happening at these meetings first back to the member liaison, and then also to the entire AIB board. So what we're doing now, we've got a structure where we are taking notes during their meetings. Now that we have more policy analysts on board, they're each joining the meetings as well. And then we're sharing those with the member liaison, and then we're working to identify kind of the key points or the biggest, most salient points to be able to share with the entire board. So you can expect that in the very near future.
That's good. I also want to mention that, I think they can be a important element of our communication plan.
Yeah.
Because they're spread all across the state. The individuals are. They interact with a lot of people. So we ought to talk to our consultant and our new communications person to ensure that they are factored into the communication plan and are equipped with current, accurate, relevant information.
Yeah, good idea, Board Member Kerwin. I would also suggest that we look into maybe on a quarterly basis, having the individual chairs, if we have chairs for the various pillars of the advisory board, actually come before this body and engage publicly with a conversation with us about what they're doing, their thoughts, and what have you. So why don't we look at how we can at least arrange that? We don't need all of them, but at least the chairs could basically come and have a small presentation, and we can interact with them, and the kinds of ideas that Vice Chair Curran has just stated and others we can share with them personally. But I would love to have them come to our meeting, maybe once every quarter, not every meeting, but once every quarter, either one or two of them, however the time may permit, so we could have a discussion with them on the record.
Yeah, great minds think alike. We've actually been, and we're going to propose setting aside on the agenda each month. And so we would
rotate.
Yeah, exactly. Each month we would invite one of the advisory committees to come and make a presentation to the board.
Right. Okay. Good idea. Thank you. Anything else, Board Member Curran?
No, that was an excellent idea of having them come actually to the board. I like that. Right.
Thank you.
The other thing I'll just mention, and it's still a work in progress, but Shamoya Gardner had mentioned engaging with students more as a stakeholder group, and we do have a student member on each advisory committee, and we've been sort of brainstorming a little bit around how to maybe leverage the students members of the advisory committees and engage them in reaching out to other students around the blueprint. So that's something that we're thinking about internally. Any thoughts either now or after the meeting that anyone has about that and what that might look like? We'd be happy to get some feedback on that.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is an update on the technical assistance grant program, and I will again ask Rachel to update us on that.
Sure. The technical assistance grant that brought the strategic facilitators to our LEAs and the CTE committee, I think we can finally say it has stood up and off the ground. We're done with all of the initial paperwork and the onboarding of everybody, and our strategic facilitators have really rolled up their sleeves and dug in. Judging by the questions that I get and our meetings with them, and as well as the feedback from our blueprint coordinators, it's really been a valuable process and support for each of them. So we have some details that we can share about the paperwork process. They had to submit initial plans to us when they were just meeting with their LEA and just figuring out the needs of the county. And we reviewed those initial plans, gave them some feedback, and then requested final plans once they had more time to dig in with the LEA and to really solidify what could be done this year. What was the goal, what was the top priority, and what was achievable. So we are finalizing our review of those final plans. They look really good, and we're really pleased with what we're seeing. And we recognize that they are going into this with you never know how much you can get done in a year, and we've given them the latitude to tell us if they need to make changes or dig in more on one area and less on another. Along with that, we have structured status reports due to us every other month, and the first one was just due this week, actually. So we have received almost all of those, and we will be reviewing those immediately and getting feedback to them. We meet with them monthly for the community of practice meetings, and we did meet with them in December, and then we just met with them last week again, to connect about work underway. And this time we're trying to build community among the strategic facilitators because many of the districts are focusing on similar topics. So some of them are conducting research or that is applicable across the state, not just to their one district. So they've been raising questions that we've been able to pose to the group to open up sharing again of strategies, ideas, resources, what's working, and where are the sticking points, or what questions do we need to get them answers to so that the LEAs can move forward on the urgent topics this year. One of the big topics many of the districts are digging into is the career ladder. Is with deadlines coming up in July, there's a lot of thinking about this, and our strategic facilitators are really playing a pivotal role in helping move those conversations forward. So overall, we've been getting really positive feedback from all levels within the districts, and then also from the strategic facilitators, that they're finding the work to be really engaging and that they really see the efforts that our LEAs are pouring into blueprint implementation.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, if there are no questions on the technical assistance grants, then we can move on to the Blueprint Comprehensive Plan update. And Emma Pellerin, who is our Implementation Plan Director, will provide that update.
Thank you. It's pretty short. We have a fully completed Blueprint Comprehensive Plan, updated Blueprint Comprehensive Plan for 2023 on our website. You can find it on the Implementation Plan tab of the AIB website. We also have now an accessible version that we will be posting, and we are working on translating the updated comprehensive plan, and that will be posted as soon as possible. We also have updated timelines showing the implementation activities by pillar and by year that are available on the website, and the updated plan is now with the printer, and we will be working on distributing printed copies of the plan as soon as possible.
What is as soon as possible? What it looks like?
I think within January, I believe, is the goal to get the printed copies out, but it might be beginning of February, but very soon.
Okay. Do we have a summary version of that? Because Vice Chair Kerwin had asked about something that we can literally pass out to take. I think that we can hand to people or give to people without the entire copy. Maybe you want to talk to that Vice Chair Kerwin about that idea you had and what we can do with that. I think that was a good idea.
Yeah, well, we were thinking that having, in order to help with our communication, to have some handouts that we could give that both talk about the blueprint, what we intend to achieve, and a summary of the plan, so that people could have something concise and really very exciting and stimulating to read. So yeah, I do think that would be a good idea, if whether we do that in-house or we use our communication consultants. Were they working on anything like that, Rachel? Do you know?
Actually, no, I don't believe so. I think we were thinking we might, once we had the final printed comprehensive plan, that we could then sort of try to pull from that and create like an executive summary.
Yeah.
I think what
the plan itself will be how many pages?
It's over 200 pages.
Yeah, so nobody's, I shouldn't say nobody, too few people are really going to read it and think about it and whatnot. So having a really nicely condensed version that it maybe has as a preamble the aspirations and the expectations for what the blueprint is going to deliver, and here's the plan to make it happen. would be a good thing to have, all of us to have to distribute and hand out.
I think that's a good idea. We need to think a little bit more about what the size and scope of that may be, but certainly we cannot walk around with copies of a 200-page plan and hand them out to civic and community groups or anybody who may ask us on the spot. So we just need to think that through. And I think what you said, Executive Director, that once we've got the entire plan completed, we can decide what sort of executive or summary portion we could use in terms of some type of a handout. But the idea should be planned, and we should start looking at that and see whether or not we can come up at least with some ideas about it.
And we can ask our communications consultant to, give us some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Member Manco?
I was going to elevate, I think perhaps a good prototype for this, since they just recently released it, was that MSDE has their full strategic plan, but then they have more or less, I think it's like an 8-page summary that just goes through kind of the high level portions of the strategic plan in a much more digestible format with some good visuals. So, just a partner that we work with frequently in-house that has a good prototype for something that we could use as a kind of vision document for what we could build off of.
Good point. Thank you.
Great idea. If there are no other questions or comments on that, Emma, why don't you go ahead and give an update on the outcome measures work group?
Definitely. So we have received aggregate data from MSDE to inform the target setting process for a number of our measures. And we have reviewed that data and are in conversations with MSD staff around some follow-up questions and clarifying points regarding that data. We have also met with MHEC staff to talk about data available for measures of teacher completers or completers of teacher preparation programs, as well as completers of participants in the Maryland Teaching Fellow scholarships and applicants and recipients. So we are, I actually just got off a phone call right before this meeting discussing the available data. And we are having another meeting with the full work group in February to provide some updates about the target setting process and share updates about the available data and what we've been finding and some of the ongoing work that's been happening with that. So that's where we are right
now. Member Stapleton or Member Manco, did you want to add anything? Okay.
Just we appreciate Emma.
There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with Emma, with MLDS, with some of our other agency and consultant partners. So there's, even though there hasn't been an outcome measures work group meeting in the last month, just know that there's a lot of work going on, and we're aiming to have a meeting in February. All righty. Next up is an update on the literacy expert teams. So as you know, MSDE and the State Board of Education and AIB have partnered to push forward this initiative to provide teams of literacy experts to meet and visit each LEA throughout the rest of the school year to review each LEA's literacy plan, which the draft literacy plans for pre-K through grade 5 were due to MSDE and AIB earlier this week, and nearly all of them have been received. The literacy teams will be reviewing those literacy plans and providing feedback, as well as meeting with district leadership and with and visiting individual schools, elementary schools, to observe the instruction that is occurring in classrooms and with instructional coaches. So all of that work is in the planning stage. Lots of progress has been made. The State Department of Education has a draft agreement to engage the Mile Center, which is a partnership of the University of Maryland College Park and Morgan State University, to provide the services for the literacy expert reviews and the reports. And so that agreement is currently has to be approved before it can move forward. The Mile Center has posted job descriptions for the literacy experts. Some of them will come from the faculty, but there are not enough there. So there is a posting, and we can share that with you, where the job descriptions are posted and where those who are interested can apply to be part of the literacy teams. And then MSDE is also going to be meeting with all of the literacy instructional coaches, or offering the opportunity, I guess I should say, for all the literacy instructional coaches around the state to meet in professional development learning labs. And all of that is intended to start in February. And the project plan includes visiting enough schools coupled with the expert review teams that have begun visiting schools. They began in November, and the weather has caused a little havoc with the scheduling for the expert review team visits, but they are going to do their best to reschedule visits that have been missed last week and this week before the end of the school year, so that the combination of the expert review teams and the literacy review teams will visit 10% of public schools in the state, which is what the target is for each year. So things are underway, things are moving. And hopefully next month we will be able to report that the literacy teams are actually put together and starting to go out into the field. Any questions? Yes.
Excuse me. Yeah, two questions or points. My understanding is that that this effort the Mile in particular, will produce some criteria that will be helpful to us when we're reviewing these literacy plans. I mean, we're supposed to approve the literacy plans, right? In later this spring.
So the final literacy plans are due to AIB and MSDE at the end of June 30th of 2020.
Right. And Mile will help us develop some. I mean, we'll be able to use their assessment in evaluating the adequacy of these literacy plans. That's correct?
I think that's fair to say. They are developing a rubric that they will use to review and provide feedback on the comprehensive plans.
Right.
And then
that can be very helpful to us.
We could use that rubric.
But you know, there's another issue that we have to address, and that is our teacher preparation programs. I learned the other day, to my great dismay, that one of our teacher preparation programs that produces the largest number of teachers is still using balanced literacy, I guess it's called, to prepare their teachers. they seem to be in denial or refusing to look at the science of reading. What is the process by which we're going to get ensure that everything is aligned in the state, including teacher preparation programs?
So interim superintendent Wright and I were actually talking about that very thing last week. We're working on an approach to bring to our boards around that. But you definitely identified another piece of the puzzle in terms of making sure that students who are prospective teachers are being prepared to teach science of reading in the classroom.
I mean, isn't it the case that MHEC and MSDE have to approve the standards of the teacher preparation programs?
It's
they certify the teacher preparation programs.
a little more complicated than that. There's a national accrediting board, but the state also has the ability to set its own accreditation standards. So happy to talk. That's a whole subject that we could spend time on.
Right.
Happy to plan for that.
Well, I think it's really important because if we don't have our teacher prep programs preparing I mean, here MHEC and the state is moving in a very significant way to do science of reading for literacy. And we're even evaluating how well our schools systems are doing and, looking at their plans, et cetera. And if our teacher preparation programs aren't preparing teachers to teach the curricula that we're going to be asked, the strategies that we're going to be asked to approve, there's a disconnect here that's got to be addressed.
Absolutely. And of course, part of the work that is going on now is training existing teachers.
Right, which is another important component.
And
yes.
So as you said, another piece of that important piece of that puzzle is training of
Could you recall, Madam Executive Director, what happened in one or two states that mandated this? What did they do?
That mandated science of reading?
Mm-hmm. Did they do all of that comprehensively? What Bridget talked about in terms of the training as well? We need to look at that and see what they did.
That's what they did in Mississippi. I know for a fact.
I mean, there was most recently that did something.
There are a number of states that have specifically mandated, science of reading, both in the schools, but also in their teacher preparation programs.
Yeah.
My understanding is there are 40 states that have now legislatively mandated science of reading.
Now, what I was asking Vice Chair was that not only are mandated in the classroom, but what they did with the preparation.
Right. Teacher preparation programs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have to come back to that's a big subject. We have to come back to that because before you leave this, how are the technical assistant grants tied into these expert review literacy and expert review teams that are out there? Is that coordinated in some way, Ms. Executive Director?
We are definitely aligning our technical assistance support to the LEAs with the we're waiting to receive the first expert review team reports, but we're definitely aligning our technical assistance jointly with MSDE around the science of reading and what the expectations are for the comprehensive literacy plans and all that.
All right, thank you.
Member Stapleton?
Yeah, just to get back to Vice Chair Kerwin's question earlier, if we will be using the literacy expert analysis review of the various plans. I think it would be nice to invite them to present, just to plan ahead, invite them to present on their process and how they came up with their decisions or their recommendations, maybe in June before we end up having to vote or to pass.
Absolutely. So just to be clear, you said in June, so you mean sort of based on what their findings were of once they go out into the LEAs, not the process of developing the rubric?
Right. I mean, and it could be a cautious conversation about, not specific details about any given plan, but just to let us have more information about how they used the information that they obtained for their recommendations.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the last item on the executive director report is a legislative update. And as with last year, we are obviously tracking legislation that's been introduced and under consideration. And we'll provide you with a weekly update on bills that have been introduced that have a direct impact or are related to the blueprint. There are also a number of other bills that are introduced that we're also tracking. So if you ever have a question about something, please let us know. But in terms of, we're really focused on tracking and making sure you're aware of legislation that has an impact or a potential impact on the blueprint. The chair mentioned that there was a legislative briefing on Tuesday with the Senate Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee that included the state board and the state superintendent and the AIB, as well as a panel of local superintendents. And then tomorrow there is a virtual briefing with the House Appropriations and Ways and Means Committee. The AIB and the state board and MSDE are jointly presenting to the two committees tomorrow. And we're just finalizing the PowerPoint for that, and we'll share that with everyone, as well as links if you want to either watch or they're all every legislative meeting is live streamed and recorded and able to be watched on demand. And we'll share those links with you as well. There are already dozens and dozens and dozens of bills that have been introduced related to education, and about a dozen or so now that are that we would say have a direct potential impact on the blueprint that are scheduled for hearings in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And so we will keep you updated as the session progresses on those bills.
Hey there, gang. My radar meteorologist, Matt Kuchin, with the week update from the Atlantic, the Northeast, and
Madam Executive Director,
Yes,
how
member
will
Dawes.
you update us on the bills and activities? Is that going to be through our site or email or?
So we'll send a weekly legislative update.
Okay, I missed that. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you received the first one. So we're gonna update them on probably on Fridays. Share an update with you on Fridays.
Do we need to go through what our recommendations are?
We've been through that. I can, but one update to provide is that we're actually drafting the legislative proposals, the 7 items that the AIB has recommended to to be introduced sort of as a comprehensive bill at the request of the AIB, sort of like a departmental bill for the House and the Senate to consider. And so that should be, that's in process. So that will be introduced in the next, well, this month, later this month.
Okay. And I think we sent out forwarded those 7 items to the board members, right?
We have, yes. They're primarily, very quickly, there are a number related to early childhood, including, clarifying that the high quality staff requirements are not required until the 27-28 school year, providing for planning, a year of planning as part of Judy Center and Patty Center grant for new Judy Centers and Patty Centers, and also asking for the Departments of Health and Social Services to be able to share contact information with the school systems for families that are potentially have 3 or 4-year-olds that are eligible for free full day pre-kindergarten, so that the school systems can follow up on any encourage families and help families to enroll their children in full day pre-K. There's also
Board certified, National Board certified.
yeah,
National,
yes, and the National Board certification proposal would clarify that non-classroom educators are eligible for the fee subsidy to become National Board certified, so that those instructional coaches and folks that may be in the central office or assistant principals and principals are able to pursue National Board certification and benefit from not having to pay the fee. So that's one clarification. And then the other big piece of the proposal is the interim evaluation of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is currently due in this fall, October of 2024. And last session, the legislature was proposing to push that out a couple of years, recognizing that the blueprint didn't get started on the timeline that was originally envisioned. And that bill just didn't quite make it over the finish line last session. So we're just supporting what the legislature was proposing last session, and essentially introduce that to move the interim evaluation to December of 2026.
and the deferred loan aspect is
Loan assistance repayment, that was the last item that was added to the proposal list as a result of the pre-kindergarten report that the AIB submitted. That would allow early pre-K teachers who are participating in the full day pre-K program to access loan assistance repayment program. The state has an existing loan assistance repayment program, and there is a specific program for teachers that is called the Nancy Grasmick loan assistance repayment program. And currently, only public school teachers are eligible, first of all. And so we want to make sure that because we have the mixed delivery system, we want to make sure that teachers in private settings, private providers that are participating in the full day pre-K program would be eligible, and also to make all pre-K teachers who meet the high quality standards eligible.
right. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. That, I think, is maybe a good segue to the next item on the agenda, which is the fiscal 25 budget. And the governor's budget was introduced yesterday. And in terms of the blueprint for Maryland's future, the highlights book notes that the blueprint is fully funded, and we're still looking at all the details, but it appears to be fully funded. But all of the pre-K-12 funding formulas are accounted for and fully funded. And so to your point, Mr. Chair, there are no proposed reductions to the blueprint funding at this time for fiscal 25. And there's also something called the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act, which makes changes to the law. It can make changes to the law, and the text for that is out now, and there are no proposals that relate to the blueprint for Maryland's future. So at least upon introduction, there are the blueprint is fully funded, and there are no proposed changes to the funding in the out years. In terms of the AIB's budget, our fiscal 25 budget is just a little bit under $3 million. It's about $2.9 million. The bulk of that is to support our salaries for our full-time staff. And then there are some additional funds for other services, required things, and some consulting services, the MOU that we have with the IAC to support our Assistant Attorney General, and also some funding to support our MOU with the Longitudinal Data System Center. And in addition, we received a $1 million deficiency. And what that means is that if it passes, it will be available in the current budget year, not the next budget year of fiscal 25, to support the interim evaluation. So we were not able to put an RFP out for an evaluation until you basically have to demonstrate that you have the money in your budget to pay for the full contract. And so we're very appreciative for the deficiency so that we can move forward and put an RFP out for the interim evaluation. I could imagine someone might ask, well, if the legislature is going to delay it for a couple of years, we don't need to move forward with it. We actually do want to bring an evaluator on as soon as possible, so that they are fully knowledgeable about the blueprint, about the work. And I see Member Stapleton shaking her head. It's really critical to get them on board as soon as possible. And so we're very appreciative for that deficiency appropriation, so we can move forward with that.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I should say. The next item on the agenda is oh, I'm sorry. There was one more thing under the finance report. This has to do with the translation of the LEA plans into Spanish. And we just wanted to make you aware that the actual cost is coming in a little bit above the estimate that we provided to you in the fall sometime. Alex, maybe help me out on that. It really is a result of we didn't anticipate that the LEAs would be making so many additions to their plans as a result of the feedback process, which created longer plans, which meant there was more to translate, which meant that it cost a little more than the original estimate. So we just wanted to make you aware of that. You do not need to approve that. Alex, was there anything else? Oh, and I did want to let you know that all of the LEA plans have been translated into Spanish. They are posted on the AIB's website, and the LEAs also have their copies of their Spanish versions for them to distribute. All right. If there are no questions, the next item is the Maryland State Department of Education's 2023 Blueprint Implementation Plan. And we're very pleased to bring this to you. Staff has been meeting, AIB staff have been meeting with MSDE staff for many months throughout the fall, late summer and fall, to review MSDE's Blueprint Implementation Plan. We've followed up with a number of questions, and MSDE staff has provided additional information so that we could better understand what they are doing and what they're planning to do. And staff is recommending that the plan be approved by the AIB. I'm going to ask Emma to provide a little more detailed information, but I did want to note that similar to the other agencies, most of the agencies that whose plans you've already approved, there's been a leadership change between when the plans were developed and submitted and now. And so similar to the conversations we had with the Higher Education Commission and the CTE committee plan, we felt, AIB staff felt that it would be more productive use of everyone's time and energy to, rather than ask the plans to be revised significantly, to move forward with the 2024 plans and provide very specific feedback and technical assistance around expectations for the 2024 plans, which are due in June. Emma?
Thank you. So I will just briefly summarize some of the areas of strength and opportunity and areas for further growth and improvement. As we had with the other state agencies, some of the LEAs, we identified both areas for feedback with MSDE's plan. So, one thing I just wanted to emphasize again, going off of what Rachel said, area of strength, we were just so pleased with the opportunities, the number of opportunities that we had to talk at length with MSD staff, including staff that we, meet with on a regular basis, as well as staff from other agencies and or other departments within MSDE about the implementation plan, and really appreciated their collaboration and feedback and the opportunity to engage with them continuously since the plan submission and since our opportunity to review it. So just wanted to highlight that first of all. The other big highlights, and you'll see this again in the feedback form, we saw a substantial number of artifacts and pieces of evidence that MSDE submitted to support its narrative responses about the work that they've done to implement the blueprint, which we greatly appreciated, and it was reflective of the amount of work that has been done on their part to implement the blueprint effectively. Our one suggestion for really considering the accessibility of the document and the fact that there's a lot of people who will be reviewing it, since this is a public document, is to concentrate the summary and the narrative response that's part of the plan, and then use the artifacts to support those responses versus referring to those artifacts as the main part of the response moving forward. So that would be for future plans. But again, we did appreciate the number of artifacts and pieces of evidence that were provided to support their response. In addition, their updated responses also provided a lot of information about the opportunities that they've taken advantage of to collaborate with external stakeholders and partners. For instance, participating in this network on the implementation of high quality instructional materials and professional development that they've joined with the Council of Chief State School Officers. And we look forward to hearing more about those opportunities and what is being done to collaborate with external stakeholders in future plans. Their updated responses also provided a lot more detail about how they are implementing the recommendations provided by the EL work group. We wanted to know more information about it, and we look forward to seeing future implementation activities that will be building on these initial plans that were provided in the updated response in their 2024 plan and beyond. And they also provided more detail about the alignment between Maryland Transforms, their strategic plan, and their blueprint implementation plan, and made that more explicit in the updated response. So we appreciated that clarification as well. In terms of, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, in terms of just areas of for further growth and improvement, we saw that the plan was very broad in scope and focused largely on summarizing work done to date. There were sections of each part of the plan where, focused on a specific objective, and there was a section devoted to future activities, and we appreciated that that was a consistent part of each response. But we would like to get more detail about the overall approach to blueprint implementation, how the department is integrating different objectives and tasks into an overall approach around blueprint implementation from a broader level, but also more detail about key action steps and timelines for those action steps related to implementation in their future submissions. So getting more detail about future activities, although again, we appreciated the number of pieces of evidence that they provided about work that has been done to date. We also wanted to point it out that it would be helpful to learn more, get more detail about the analysis that's been done and what they have found related to varying local needs and challenges across LEAs and across the state, and what will need to be done to address those challenges related to the blueprints implementation, and what the department will be doing to help address those challenges. We know that there are varying local needs from the LEA plans, and what will the department be doing to help address those through things like technical assistance. We would like to also see more detail around plans for continued technical assistance moving forward, what guidance the department plans to provide, and more directly and specifically to LEAs to help address those varying local needs, and what it plans to do to roll out that technical assistance. We also would like to, and this is similar to MHEC's plan, we had the exact same piece of feedback. We need a joint plan on how a joint plan for meeting teacher preparation and training requirements that was called for in the blueprint. And what was submitted was really a plan for developing regulations governing teacher preparation and certification. So we have the same piece of feedback that in the updated plan, we need to see a joint plan. The updated submissions from both MHEC and MSDE, that we would like to see a joint plan that meets the requirements of the blueprint that were articulated in the blueprint, and are requesting that for the 2024 submission. And I think would expect to see the same plan in both agency submissions, but we would want to see that joint plan and have that again in the feedback for both agencies. And I think that those were the big things we wanted to point out from the feedback. Again, the feedback form has a lot more detail. It has some examples to help support some of the things that we called out today. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, and Rachel obviously as well. So please let me know if you have any questions.
I think we have a motion for our consideration at this point in time. Is that correct?
Yes, we do have a motion for approval. I think Vice Chair Kerwin has his hand up.
Okay. Questions, comments, Kerwin?
You're on mute.
Apologies. It's clear that your conclusion is that the plan is adequate for approval. you wouldn't be recommending it otherwise. But you certainly indicate there are some very significant improvements or additions that will need to be in next year's plan. And I just wonder is there a process by which we can ensure that happens? In other words, if we get their plan 3 weeks before we're supposed to approve it and it isn't adequate, and we send back a few questions and they make some adjustments and we still don't get the plan that will there be some way to work with them next year to ensure that and I think this is broader than just the MHEC. I think MSDE. I think it applies to others as well. Is there a way that we can have some early warning that we don't think they're on track? They're going to have to make some adjustments. Anyway, I don't have a precise question, but I am concerned that we'll be in the same position we are this next year with plans that, okay, they're adequate, but they really aren't of the quality that we think is necessary. So that's one question. The other is, I was very intrigued by your comment that you were asking both MHEC and MSDE to develop a joint strategy on the teacher preparation programs. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that could be a place perhaps where we address this teacher preparation around literacy issue, it would seem to me.
Yes, I think that's that's a spot on observation. I was just having the same thought. In terms of so what we're planning to do is meet regularly with the state agencies. They're submitting plans in 2024 so that we can really make sure that we're conveying what the expectations are and getting a better sense of what they're thinking about in terms of putting in their plan, and just sort of help support them to develop more strategic plans, sort of similar to how the strategic facilitators are supporting the LEAs. We'll be doing that with our own staff and working with their staff to do that in a very.
We haven't given them. They don't have a strategic facilitator, do they?
No, they do not.
Okay.
So that's that, and we're also going to be developing templates for the state agencies to submit. We had a template for the LEAs last year, but we did not have a template for the state agencies, and we definitely think that it would benefit from having a template for the state agencies, and also a template that is aligned with the LEA template, that we have for 2024, that is really organized to help support more strategic and innovative planning.
Good.
Emma, did you want to say any more about that before there are a couple of other hands up?
Just that we've already started identifying what questions or prompts, if you will, would be going into those guides or templates for 2024 specific to each agency, and that are based off of our review of the plans. So as we were thinking about feedback and areas for improvement, we really did consider, okay, is this best addressed now? Or are we going to get a stronger response and therefore more effective implementation by having continuous technical assistance and conversations with agency staff to support a stronger response over the course of several months leading up to the blueprint plan submission in June of 2024. So in areas where we felt like continued conversation, collaboration, some technical assistance and support would be beneficial. We chose to limit the feedback, or not limit the feedback, but identify areas of growth and improvement in the feedback form. And then noting that we want to ask about this in their 2024 plan, and we'll be addressing it through technical assistance and support in the winter and spring leading up to the plan submission.
Thank you. It looks like the hands that were up are now down, so
Okay, we're ready for a motion then?
I think
Well,
we answered all the questions.
All right.
Like me to read the motion?
Yes, please do.
So the motion is after careful consideration of the recommendation of the AIB staff and based on our own independent review of all documents provided by the State Department of Education. The motion is for the board to approve the initial implementation plan submitted by the State Department of Education.
All right, then I move the motion. Is there a second to it?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and properly second that we approve motion item number 4. Are there any questions or discussion reference to this particular motion? Seeing none or hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstention? None. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Item
Vice
I,
Chair Kerwin?
Yes, where do we stand on approval of all plans? In other words, we've now done MHEC and MSDE and LEA. Are there any left that we have not yet approved?
There is one left. It is the Juvenile Services Education Program Plan. AIB staff has been working with that plan was the other plans were submitted in March. The what's known as JSEP is Juvenile Services Education Program was submitted in June, and staff have been working with the staff of JSEP to review their plan and provide feedback. And we are sort of in the final stages of doing that and requesting revisions or responses. So we aren't quite ready to recommend approval of that plan yet, but we are working hard on it, and we'll bring it to you as soon as we can.
thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Okay, now we go to agenda item number 5, I think it is.
Yes. So what you have is a draft of guidance for the school systems related to what is called the minimum school funding requirement. It is in section 5-234 of the education article. So you also hear it referenced as the 5234 requirement. This is a piece of the blueprint law that essentially requires for the various blueprint funding formulas that provide per pupil funding based on student counts, that those dollars are following students to the schools that they're attending. For most of the formulas, the requirement is that 75% of the per pupil formula funding is following those students to their schools. There are 2 programs, the concentration of poverty program and the private providers in the full day pre-K program, where 100% of the funds must follow students to their school or private provider in that case. And this is a requirement that that was put in the law essentially to address one of the findings of the Kerwin Commission, which was that surprisingly, the funding, the Maryland state and local funding that is distributed through our funding formulas The goal is that you want your funds to be progressive, meaning that they are, that schools that have more students with needs for additional supports. We use students from families that are eligible for free reduced price meal as a proxy of identifying students that may need additional supports. We also English language learners, special education students, and so on. You want there to be more funds in schools that have higher numbers of students that need additional supports. And one of the findings of the Kerwin Commission was that that was not the case based on national studies that found that Maryland's combined state and local funding was slightly regressive. And that was a surprise because the funding formulas, the pre-blueprint funding formulas, most of which were just expanded by the blueprint, were designed to be progressive and to distribute state funds on a based on student need. And that was part of the previous commission called the Thornton Commission, and that became law under the Bridge to Excellence for public schools. And so that was a big finding that the commission made, and the recommendation to address it was to put this provision in the law, the minimum school funding requirement, to ensure that the funding formulas were designed to provide funds to support students with different needs, and to make sure that those dollars were making their way to support students by looking at this school level spending. LEAs are required to begin reporting to MSD and AIB on this requirement beginning July 1st of 2024. And and so the reporting, there's a new financial information system that MSDE has procured, and that it's been developed. It's still sort of in the testing mode, but it will be ready to go by July 1st so that the LEAs can begin reporting this data to the state. It will take over a year to have a full year's data to be able to look at baseline data. So just to make sure everyone realizes that even though they will begin reporting on July 1st, that data is going to come in monthly, and it's not necessarily going to be representative of, until we get through the entire fiscal year, it's not going to be representative of all their spending. So, and there's a period after the end of the fiscal year called closeout that we need to get through so that we have the full picture of their spending over the entire fiscal year. Part of MSD and AIB's role is to review that information and determine whether LEAs are meeting the minimum school funding requirement. And the Power School system is being developed to support so that AIB and MSD are able to see that data and look at that data to try to determine whether the requirement is being met. The school systems are planning for, they're aware of this requirement, of course, and they've been thinking about and planning for how they're going to be able to meet this requirement. And they have asked for guidance around what the AIB's expectations are, particularly in the first couple of years of data collection. And so part of the purpose of this guidance is to provide guidance that the AIB will, much as we have considered the first reporting of data around other blueprint programs, that we will consider the first reporting of data around the minimum school funding requirement as baseline data, that the expectation is that LEAs will make a good faith effort to meet the minimum school funding requirement in all their schools. And that over time, we will be expecting to see progress in meeting the requirement in all of their schools. And that's basically what the first couple of paragraphs say in this draft guidance. I will also point out that as part of the 2024 plans that are due May 1st, one of the questions that the LEAs need to respond to is what their plan is for meeting the minimum school funding requirement over the next 3 years. So while we won't have the actual data yet for another year, we will be receiving as part of their 2024 plans how they are thinking about meeting the requirement and what changes they're making in order to meet the requirement. And a lot of, some of this gets into, very challenging, difficult decisions that are going to need to be made. And some of this revolves around needing to rethink how existing funds are being spent, depending on the availability of new funds. Because they're, at the end of the day, there's not, even with the blueprint and the cost of the blueprint, there's not enough money for LEAs to keep doing everything they're doing now, the way they're doing it, and implement the blueprint with fidelity. So there's got to be that conversation around allocation and reallocation of resources. And AIB is working to provide some targeted technical assistance to support the LEAs and county governments in doing that thinking and work collaboratively. The next couple of paragraphs in the guidance really are just restating what's in the law. So under the blueprint law, the AIB, in terms of approving whether to release the, there's the automatic withholding of 25% of new blueprint funds from each LEA until their plans are approved. And in the first couple of years, so through fiscal 25, which is next year, the law essentially says that the AIB is to look to whether the plan is approvable, both the initial plan and any subsequent changes to the plans, whether it's approved or not is the sole reason for releasing funds or not releasing funds. Beginning in fiscal 26, the AIB, the law says that the AIB is authorized to consider whether a school system or a school has made sufficient progress on implementing their plan and or taken appropriate steps to improve student performance. So for the next 2 years, essentially, the AIB authority to release funds is really tied to whether you approve their plans and their changes to their plans. After beginning in fiscal 26, there's the additional criteria, which is really looking at whether progress is being made and whether sufficient or appropriate steps have been taken to improve student performance. So this is straight out of the blueprint law, but I think it is helpful for the school systems to be aware of the potential impact of meeting the requirement or not meeting the requirement in the next couple of years. Beginning fiscal 26 is where it really will be something that the AIB will be considering closely in terms of whether progress has been made, in terms of whether to release funds or not.
I think, Rachel, we need to explain why we have this draft memo and how that developed, because I think that's important, because it states maybe a little bit of flexibility, but it repeats in some ways much of what we assume the law to be, but the question would be, well, why would we need this draft or this memo to something? And maybe you want to explain that as well.
Sure. The superintendents have requested that we provide guidance around how the AIB will consider the initial data that is submitted beginning July 1st in terms of whether they are meeting the minimum school funding requirement overall by the LEA and then for each individual school. And so sort of the key provision that relates to that is the expectation that the first year of data will be baseline data, that there's an expectation of a good faith effort to meet the requirement in beginning July 1st, 2024, and that the AIB will be looking at whether progress is made between the baseline year of data and the next couple of years of data as the AIB considers whether to release funds.
Right. And add to that, when we had a discussion with them, we were talking essentially verbally about our interpretation, what is required, and I indicated to them that we would get them something back in writing so that they would see it and would not be second guessed about what the intent was. And to the degree that we found in the first 2 years some level of flexibility, it is stated in the memo in writing. So it sort of clarifies what we assume the law to be, what indications we made to them verbally so that they could see it, and there would be no confusion about this going forward, rather than to say, well, Rachel or Ike or Britt or someone gave me this assurance and we interpreted this way. This is to clarify that, to make sure that A, we are in compliance with the law, and to the degree that there is some level of flexibility in the first year or two, we are putting that in writing so that everyone is on the same page here. And so this is why we're providing this draft to let everyone know basically what we are saying with full transparency, that they would have some assurances about what is expected and not any confusion going through.
Yes.
Do you want to add to the appeals process as well? Which
exactly. So the law also very specifically requires the AIB to adopt a process for the LEAs to request a waiver from meeting the minimum school funding requirement. There are several criteria that are stated in the law, and there might be other criteria that the board wants to consider as part of that waiver process. So we will be working, staff with our council will be working on developing a draft for you all to consider and for us to receive public feedback, review and comment on before adopting the appeals process.
All right. Okay. Okay. Any questions, comments? Please indicate by raising your hands. Okay, I don't see any. Are you noticing any, Rachel, at all?
I don't see any hands.
All right.
I think.
Well, thanks.
Yes.
Very good explanation.
And I think it is a draft. We shared this with the CFOs of the school systems actually earlier today, and let them know that we welcome their input and feedback.
Right. Thank you. All right, then I think we're now ready for a closed session. Anything else for the open session at this point? And I thank our attorney for helping and put this draft together. Is she here? Thank you, Attorney Duderer.
Thank you, Heidi.
put in, get in this draft before us. All right. Okay, let's read the appropriate statement for a closed session, and we will adjourn from the closed session as such, right? Okay.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Heidi, did you want to read that?
Sure.
Thank you.
For the last
Thank
agenda
you
item.
again for your work in this again. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. So for the motion for the last agenda item, the board expects to perform an administrative function and receive legal advice from counsel pursuant to sections 3-103 and 3-305B7 of the general provisions article of the annotated code of Maryland. The motion is to close this meeting and then subsequently to adjourn from the closed session.
Okay. All right, motion been made. I make the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
A second.
Move the property second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye or hold your hands up.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any opposition? Hearing none, we'll take 5 minutes to go into closed session, which will be 2:50. 5 minutes, and we'll join the closed session at 2:50. Thank you.
And just the link for the closed session is in your agenda.
Okay, yeah.
Is aware of
Thank
that. Thank you.